bad place to be as an organization, particularly if you end up where one team's success actually grinds another team, or one team's failure makes another team happy. It's not a good place to be. The did my job, not my job is another one that kind of is the flip side of ownership. I was quite literally watching something go wrong in production. Somebody got an alert. The page went to the wrong person. They were like, I'm not on call. And they said, I'm just gonna put my phone down. Now the system worked in such a way that only one person could get paged. So that person, when they got paged, they were the only person to. It was a mistake. Wrong person was put on the call rotation. But instead of saying, hey, this isn't for me, I should go figure out who is on call, they let it go. You can imagine what happened the next day when the system was still down and that person who woke up saying, oh crap, I thought I was on call, I didn't get paged, what went wrong? Yeah. Here's some things I like to say that you should not worry about, which I think sometimes we do worry about. Again, context, your mileage may vary. I don't tend to worry about duplication of tooling. I know that a lot of people really push that there should be one way to do something. I'm okay. I'm okay with this. For some period of time, duplication of tooling is good. I'd rather go fast and have to sort some of that stuff out later. I don't like the word culture fits. I don't know, I think that's maybe a lazy way to categorize people. I'd actually rather know why somebody shouldn't be hired or somebody's not working out rather than say bad culture fit. That's easy to say, I just don't like you. I don't want to know why you don't like someone, I want to know if they can be successful. The 100% alignment goes to some earlier points. I don't worry that everyone fully understands every piece of strategy or vision or whatnot. I would like them to grok most of it, but I'm not going to worry that every single person knows everything. What I am going to worry about is if they don't understand how they themselves can apply to an aspect of this and how they can directly map back to this. That is something I do worry about. I stress over org structure, and I have to constantly tell myself this as well. You're never going to get perfect org structure. You will never, ever have it. 80% of the time, it's going to be good enough, and the other 20% is going to be a little bit mismatched. But you're gonna have to be okay with that. It's an imperfect system. Just figure out what's going to work for you for the context. Move, keep moving, figure it out again, keep moving. And then to get everything right. This is something that I find a lot of folks get into, which is every single bit of the system has to work flawlessly or it's all shit. And it seems to be the two. I call this the nirvana fallacy, which is if it's not perfect, it's terrible. There's a spectrum in between there where you are going to have success. Some of the most successful teams and products and whatnot have maybe some of the worst architected or the worst code behind them or whatnot. Some of those things don't matter. Don't worry about stressing every little detail. Figure out what's important to you in your context. Maybe market adoption is more important than perfect code. Great, go. Maybe scale, scale is going to be important because of the type of product you're at. Maybe you're working on an IoT something or other inside of Google, and the day you turn this on, you're going to get 35 million people signing up day one. Great, go. Know what's right for you. Yep.
Do you have some secrets for success in cultivating product owners and product managers so you can intelligently decide what is the best?
Yeah, so do I have any secrets for cultivating product managers that could recognize this and kind of run with this? Or product owners? Yeah, I think the secret is to be doing this for a long time and to keep grabbing the good ones with you as you go so that over time you just have a small team of very, very good people. It's hard to grow those folks. I'll go back to, I look for certain leadership principles that people tend to embody. The ownership one is one of the first ones I'll see, and in a product owner, product manager, that's kind of one of the key ones. A good test that I like to use when someone says, hey, I'm really ready for leadership is, cool, I need you to go solve this problem, or I have this problem. What they do next when I say I have this problem is usually indicative of whether or not they're thinking about leadership in the right way, or how I would like them to think about it. When I ask that question, someone who's got some potential or already kind of moving in that direction is like, all right, I'm going to go find out a whole bunch of stuff or try to get some questions answered or do something. There's a whole bunch of things that are happening on the backside. Person who's not thinking about this in the same sort of context that I'm thinking about it is basically saying, okay, what do you want me to do about that? That's not why I expressed that I have a challenge. If I knew what to do about this challenge, I would have taken it and I would have done it. It's probably faster for me if I already know what to do it than to delegate it. I am expressing that I have a challenge or that I have a problem or something that needs to get solved, and I really don't know what to do about it. I need you to help me on that. Those types of people, those types of mindsets, that type of activity, if they have that, they can learn almost any other skill. They can learn to program. They can learn to write core portions of the internet. That stuff to me is learnable. It's the other stuff that's harder to teach. So this is the do worry about. This one? So this goes back to, repeat the question. I'm really bad at that. The question was, I had removed consensus on this. Can I give a little bit more color on that one? And this is the, get two people in a room, they're going to disagree over some topic. One of the things that most frustrates me when I see a small organization that thinks that they're moving in a way is we all agree on everything. If one person in the room is thumbs down on something, we're not going to do it because that one person in the room is thumbs down. That feels good for a lot of people, but what happens when you're 30 people and one person in the room thumbs down can block anything? You will literally at some point hit a stall where you will not make any forward progress. And what happens in that case is people don't live that value anymore, but they don't say they're not living that value, just find ways to skirt it. Smaller teams, smaller structures, decisions made over here that are more announced as opposed to discussed. I just say don't start with it in the first place. Understand that this is not a consensus. Not everyone's going to agree with every decision, but we're going to disagree and commit, and we're going to be okay with that. We understand who owns the decision. So as an example, should I pick our health coverage? Probably not. Should I get a say in it? I'm an exec. I should probably understand how it's going to impact my organization. I should understand that. I have a saying which I use for the organization. It's called voices, votes, and vetoes. And I like to say that as opposed to consensus. Understand that in any situation, there are certain people who are going to have voices into the situation. Some people are going to have votes, and certain people are going to have vetoes. Understand who has what in the situation is really important, and know that consensus is not what our goal is. Our goal is momentum and movement and going forward. And I find that once you frame it, once I have framed it that way, things become clearer to people. Voices, votes, and vetoes is an easy way to say, hey, I heard you, cool, you were listened to. It's still somebody else's decision. That decision is as such. And I like to point out that most contexts that I find myself in, again, I'm in a privileged position as the head of technologies, I get a lot of vetoes that most people don't have, and I have to use them sparingly. I should use my veto sparingly, and I should use other mechanisms to get to that. But if I'm using a veto, I'm using it, and I'm going to do it for some reasons. And I most often do it when the hair on the back of your neck, the spidey sense is going off, you're not really sure what to do. Use the veto to slow something down. You're like, I just don't feel comfortable. I want some more data. I want to dive into this a little deeper. That's kind of all I really mean by that one. What's right on the do worry slide? These are, you've been doing this for a while, you start to collect the do worry slide. I do worry about too many programming languages and frameworks. I know before I had duplication of tooling, but this is actually the one I do worry about a little bit. Why? Because it challenges the team mobility. If one team is using Go, one team is using Rust, as an example, it's difficult. Someone coming up to speed on another team is going to be challenging. Now, there might be very good reasons to do that, but I want you to have that conversation explicitly, not just do it implicitly because it was easy. With the JavaScript frameworks that are out there these days, there's literally one created every second. Literally, someone in this room created a new JavaScript framework tonight and has published it. That's how often they're created. And if every new front end had a brand new JavaScript framework of the day, team mobility suffers, and it's just a challenge. And I encourage you to make these decisions explicitly. We've already been over the toxic and negative attitudes. I reinforce this. I wrote a blog post a while back called "The Biggest Mistake I Ever Made," which was not letting go of the most talented person that we had in the company when I should have. I kept that person for too long because they were incredibly productive. They were really good, but they were also a monumental asshole. And I kept that person because I worried about losing that output, and it was literally the biggest mistake I've made in management at this point. And I like to learn from my mistakes and not reinforce them and do them over. I really encourage you to think about that one. Political agendas is a tough one because you never know if someone's got an agenda. You can just kind of sense if they might. But I find these most in someone advocating for a tool or tech or something. They really just want to play with something typically. This is the time where, like, hey, you have to start asking questions. Why are we doing this? Is it an important decision to make, or is it just because you want to scratch an itch? I had someone who was really working on and loving and doing side projects in Clojure at one point in a Ruby shop, and they brought Clojure in for a project because it was the best tool for the job. That was, as far as I'm concerned, a little bit of an agenda. They wanted to bring their pet language in. This other one I see a lot in large companies. I work with a lot of large companies in partnership, and I see this all the time, and it frustrates the hell out of me. Internal competition as a survival mechanism. Steve Jobs was famous for this. He would say, I've got team A over here and team B over here. They're going to work on the exact same thing. Whichever one is most successful gets to keep their job. That, I don't really know what to say about that. That's not something I feel very good about. I would obviously hate to be on a losing team. I also kind of hate to be on the winning team. I feel good in the moment, I think, but I'm not sure how I'd feel about that year after year. I do worry about being too slow. Software moves incredibly fast. We talked about how fierce the hiring, the challenge of hiring people here in the Valley is, and competition for all that. If you're slow almost in any regard these days, you're almost toast. So go faster. I worry about employee churn. I worry about it because whether or not it's good employee churn in terms of if you're a large organization and 10% of the people are not working out for you or for whatever reason, they're going to move on. That's, theoretically good. However, there is a moral drag to employee churn. The morale drag to employee churn, even if it's positive churn. It's people leaving, if there's this emotional element to it for people. So I do worry about this. I think our industry average for turnover inside high-tech companies in San Francisco, I'm not sure if it's all of the Bay, but San Francisco is something like 17% annually, which is actually kind of high, I would think. And that's not regrettable, non-regrettable, that's just churn. So you think about how many people get hired each year, how many people are leaving, how many new faces, old faces, it's just, there's an emotional element to it. I care about morale, kind of going to the employee churn one. You want to know how people emotionally are responding to the organization. Most of the time when I find that people have lower morale in organizations that I've been in, it tends to be a couple of things at play. One is they've lost faith in leadership. They just don't believe them anymore. They don't align to the vision or the mission. They're just not sure either what it is. They don't have to understand it completely, but they're not even sure what it is or how they themselves are part of that mission or vision. That's a very, very common one where the mission is something very technical in a tech-oriented company, and then the salesperson or the marketing person doesn't quite understand how they apply because of a very specific framing. Watch for that. I do worry about output going back to being too slow, but in this way, but I think about output quite a bit. I would rather be faster and getting faster all the time than being perfect and slow. These kind of go hand in hand. Might be a factor of the industries that I have been part of for quite some time, but competition is getting fiercer and fiercer in almost every industry. Money is pretty liberal these days. There's a lot of people out there who are entering almost every space. And also Amazon, who's apparently in everybody's domain, and they move ruthlessly fast. And Amazon is actually an interesting case study for a lot of these things because they break a lot of these rules too. But I also never want to work for Amazon. I am petrified of them though. I think that if you're not petrified of them in software, you're probably not looking at the problem the correct way. Amazon looks at $1 and thinks that they're just going to come for it. But they're going to do it ruthlessly and they're going to go incredibly fast. Market reputation is an interesting one, but today's day and age, hiring is difficult, employee retention is hard. You want to attract the best and the brightest. They're going to ask their network a lot. They're going to go on Twitter. They're going to do searching and stuff. There's a lot of things at play in this one. Market reputation is an important one. I like to use the Microsoft example here. Been around for a long time. I remember when I was excited about Windows 3.1 and Windows 95 coming out. And then I remember when Microsoft became $M and everyone hated them. And the Ballmer peak years and all that sort of stuff. And I remember how their reputation really tanked for a little while there. And then Satya came in and really turned them around the last 3 or 4 years. And if anyone hasn't been watching Microsoft, they're kind of a remarkable, very quick turnaround story at the top. And all of a sudden, it's kind of cool to work for Microsoft again, particularly if you're a dev evangelist in the cloud space. They're like swooping in and plucking up everybody. And people are pretty happy about it too. It's quite interesting to watch that at play. If I'm honest with myself, I didn't think that was going to be possible with them. I thought they would always be a version of Oracle. And Oracle's another one. How many people here, I'm sorry if I'm insulting anybody by saying Oracle, but Oracle's the one that has a certain reputation in the market. If you like it, you're going to love working there. If you don't, you're never going to consider Oracle, but it's very polarizing.